All right, last video of the semester, and we're going to take a look at some shortcuts you can take using the event object. The person who came up with jQuery didn't change the event object that much, but they did configure some really useful shortcuts for adding event listeners and things like that to items. So we'll take a look at that. What we're going to do in this example, first of all, we've included our jQuery library, so be sure and do that. Looks like I'm missing a script tag here. So what this is going to do is, I know you guys are tired of seeing Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana from lab 4, your drag and drop lab, but we're going to use the same thing. And just to point out a couple of things, I've changed a style on here that some of you might not be familiar with. Because we're going to be clicking on H1s, I wanted the pointer to change, the cursor to change to the pointer, so it makes it look more clickable instead of the cursor that you normally deal with text that an H1 would have if you hovered over it. So I just changed the pointer on that. That's just an aside. It's not necessary to this. What is necessary to look at is that on the H1 that has the abbreviation of TX, I've set the ID to Texas, which is going to be our answer. So what this little program is going to do is if I click on TX, it's going to tell me the full state name is Texas. And so the reason I point that out is because I'm going to use that as the answer. Now, a lot of you probably used this ID in your drag and drop. You didn't have to, but quite a few of you probably used it to solve the problem. So what we're going to do first is we are going to go ahead and look at the jQuery portion of this. This is where we're going to add the event listeners to all 3 of our H1s. Again, because jQuery makes it easy to select multiple things and allows you to manipulate them individually without having to loop through the array. This is where we're going to see our time saving. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and write our function to handle our event, and that will look very much the same from the examples in the lab that you did last. So let's go ahead and open up a script tag so we can go add our event listeners to our H1s. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the jQuery object, and we're going to select all H1s on this page. So that'll get all 3 of our H1s in one fell swoop. And remember, in previous examples, you had to retrieve all of them, and then you had to loop through them if you wanted to add event handlers and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and then use the on method. And in jQuery, what the on method allows us to do is it allows us to do a lot of event handling at once. And so the on method is going to accept parameters that are the event that is going to trigger it, and then what function will be called. So it's very similar to our event listener too. It's very flexible in allowing you to add multiple events. It is flexible in allowing you to easily add multiple events and multiple handlers, functions that are going to be called when you do that. But we're going to be pretty straightforward. So we're just going to send in that we're listening for the click event, and then separate it by a comma and tell it that we are going to call a function named click handler once that happens. And so with one line of code using jQuery, what we've done is we've added an on-click event listener to all 3 of our H1s. And so from here on out, we just need to write click handler, and that's where it's going to look pretty much like it has before. I'm going to go up to the script area. I'm going to write a function. If I spell it correctly, it helps. So click handler is what we named it. Now I do need to send the event object in, and then open and close my curly braces. So once the event comes in, we do need to prevent the default function of the click event. And then what we're going to do, and like I said, some of you might have done this before. Some of you might be like, oh man, I wish I hadn't thought of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable that feeds us the ID of whatever was the triggering item on the page. So the target ID is going to be retrieved by whatever triggered the click event to come into the click handler function. So if I clicked on OK, that is the target. And when that comes into the event, I'm going to grab the ID of whichever target triggered the event and store it in my variable. And then I just have output after that. So alert, the full name of the state is, and then I'm just going to tack on whatever is stored in my variable. So that should be, I'm going to change that to a parenthesis. Come on, parentheses. So that should be really all we need to do. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to pop on over to my page. I need to reload it. And this is what I'm talking about, is when I move my cursor over the H1, it's going to change to the clicky cursor. So when I click on Texas, it comes up and tells me that the full name of the state is Texas. If I click on Oklahoma, it reads that ID and goes on. So not much is different in the way that the event itself is handled, but there's a lot of time saving. Your book has a lot of good examples of different ways to add multiple events and multiple handlers to that. So that is pretty much it. Hope you learned something from the videos, and if you have questions about Lab 5, be sure and let me know.